welcome back to another episode of the TFR Podcast. We are back today to preview, shall I say, not review, but preview the Belgium Grand Prix of the 2025 F1 World Championship. It is Patrick who joins myself, CJH, today for this podcast. And we've already had quite a bit of the action today with the first practice session, which is obviously the usual thing. And then we've had a sprint qualifying, which Oscar Piastri secured pole for tomorrow's sprint race for. How are you doing, Patrick? And are you looking forward to this weekend's Belgium Grand Prix?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you, CJ. And yes, I mean, Spa's like one of my favorite tracks of all time. I have never commentated over a bad race, never watched a bad race of Spa. It's a tricky track, but I mean, there's so many good opportunities for overtakes to happen. And I mean, I think that we're going to have a fantastic sprint and a fantastic Grand Prix as the week goes on.
Yeah, I agree. I think Spa is a good track for the sprint race to be at. I mean, it's the only one of the European part of the calendar this season that has a sprint event at it. And yeah, I think with particularly the way the starts are at this circuit, it usually provides quite a bit of action. I think because the first corner is not necessarily the key part of where you need to make your overtake. There's a bit of dilemma in terms of where you do it, if you want to do it there or down the Camel Straight. And yeah, I think it should hopefully be a good weekend of racing. Let's get into some of the action so far then. And obviously Oscar Piastri, you'd have to say, dominated the sprint qualifying, but he almost missed out on getting into Q3, didn't he? It was a little bit of a close shave there, but he made it count when it mattered.
100%. Yeah, I mean, his pace, I mean, aside from the Q2 in the sprint, I mean, Oscar Piastri's pace has just been head and shoulders above everybody else. I mean, this is clearly that McLaren likes this track, and Oscar, it does really good around here. So he started second in the sprint in 2023, or yeah, I believe it was 2023, the last time we had a sprint here. So, I mean, this is a track that Oscar is good at. We'll just have to see if that quality pace and that pace he's shown all day today can translate to the sprint race tomorrow.
Yeah, because I guess in some sense it's not as simple as that. As you know, like I was saying with Spa, you can get pole position, but would you say this is one of the tracks, Patrick, where you don't necessarily, well, you always want pole, but you're not desperate for it at this kind of track?
100%. Yeah. I mean, you can get pole here, but once again, this is such a skill-based track, like pretty much every track on the calendar. But there's so many good opportunities to overtake. It's not like a Monaco where you're basically just waiting in 5 o'clock rush hour traffic, just trying to even stay in your current position. There's a lot of good overtaking spots. I mean, the Camel Straight's a fantastic spot. And then the run all the way up to the bus stop chicane's a good place to try to get some overtakes done. A lot of good overtaking opportunities, and it does have the longest lap time out of any lap time on the Formula One calendar at the moment. So, yeah, pole position is obviously always a nice thing, but you don't really need pole position to win here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating up through Eau Rouge and Raidillon, and then towards the Les Combes corner. It's going to be a fascinating battle between actually the top three, because you could say with how long that run is up the hill, Norris could still get himself in place, starting in third place, but it is obviously Verstappen in second, and he's gone for a very radical setup, you could say, for this weekend, Patrick, because the car is not very quick in the corners, and it's really depending on Max to control it on a bit of a knife edge, but it's incredibly quick down the straights. It was 4 tenths up on Piastri at some points in that first sector, and that's going to be really intriguing to see how the start of the race plays out, because Verstappen, you can be sure he'll be going for it, but he's also got the straight line speed to enable him to go for it.
I mean, that's a very valid point. I mean, this has always been a track that Max has been good at, but we have to remember, too, they tried a very similar thing at Silverstone the last Grand Prix, and it really didn't work out super well for Max. I mean, he even had the rare wet weather spin for Max, and Max is considered one of the best drivers in the wet. And also, I mean, there's a lot of talk about how it was supposed to rain a good chunk of the day for pretty much most of the weekend. So, I mean, yeah, there's some good high speeds parts where the Red Bull can shine, but if it gets wet, then Max is not really in the best position.
Yeah, that is something that people have talked about this weekend, that there is going to be quite a bit amount of rain at the circuit. I mean, who knows? You just don't know with Spa. It has got its own climate, and it is the summertime, and you can think that it's going to be baking hot, sunny European conditions, and then the rain just suddenly appears at Spa. And that's something that, you mentioned about Silverstone there, Patrick. That is going to be a bit of deja vu for Red Bull in this sprint race. If the rain comes and they've got such a low wing setup, it's going to be an absolute nightmare for them, isn't it?
Right, and if you don't have the correct amount of downforce going through Eau Rouge in particular, because that's such a high-speed corner, then, I mean, Max was lucky that he was able to recover that spin in Silverstone, but there's not much forgiveness if you make a spin at Eau Rouge.
No.
So, I mean, there's a very big chance that you're going to end up straight in the barrier, and your race is done.
Well, we've seen that plenty of times with the likes of Lando Norris, actually. I always remember the crash he had, I think it was in 2021, in those kind of wet conditions, and he hit the barrier at Eau Rouge. So it could be quite an eventful weekend, really. I was going to say a couple of sessions tomorrow, but I think there's more chance of rain, actually, on the Sunday. And yeah, for the sprint race, if there's a bit of rain, I don't think that's going to help Verstappen's chances, and it will probably favour McLaren. But then I guess in some ways, it doesn't necessarily favour anybody. As we saw at Silverstone, the rain does just spice up the order even more so. And we had the order spiced up a little bit in this sprint qualifying, Patrick, because Haas themselves were doing great, weren't they? I mean, they really capitalised on the evolving track. And a car in 5th and a car in 7th with Ocon leading the Bearman. That's a great result for them, isn't it? I mean, they can, potentially get points in the sprint race with both cars tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're like that midfield pack, you're like with your Williams, your Sauber, your Aston Martin, Haas. I mean, pretty much every point is going to count going into pretty much. I mean, the summer break's right around the corner too, so you want as much of a morale boost as you can get going into that break. So, I mean, if Haas can manage to get double points in both the sprint and the feature race, I mean, they're in a good position to do that right now because the Haas car does seem pretty dialed into this track. So, I mean, in Q3, it looked like it was the third quickest car overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, maybe these sprint kind of qualifyings, they suit the Haas car a little bit better, a little less time for other people to get themselves together. You mentioned there about the summer break coming up. I wanted to say this at some point in the pod of how annoying it's been that we've had a 3-week break and then we're going to have a couple of races. I think it's Spa, Hungary, and then the summer break starts. But I don't know about you, Patrick. I felt like the momentum of this season has just dropped away a little bit because of this 3-week gap. I don't actually know why it is. I don't know why there couldn't have been a 2-week gap between Belgium and Hungary to make all of these races a little bit closer. But I don't know. I find that frustrating that we've had a gap after such a good race at Silverstone, and then we've got these races and then another gap. What do you make of it? I mean, obviously there has always been the summer break, but it just seemed a bit strange to me.
Yeah, it's kind of rough and it's kind of weird on a scheduling front. You would think, I mean, I have several different opinions on the scheduling with F1 anyway, but that's for a different time. But yeah, it just seems kind of weird that we're going from the summer break and then pretty much, or like a mini summer break, straight into the actual summer break after only just 2 Grand Prix.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a little bit annoying. I mean, I know I just feel like at this time of the season they might as well have a lot of these European races kind of back to back, really. I mean, like I say, if they had Spa straight after Silverstone or whatever, then that's a super easy one for the teams to get to. But it is what it is, and at the minute, the championship is kind of at its boiling point, if you like, in terms of Norris closing that gap back up to Piastri. We'll see, obviously, what happens in the sprint tomorrow, and that could play a big factor in terms of another points swing. But how do you feel the championship is looking now? Since we last did a podcast, quite a few races ago, actually, Patrick, we were probably thinking Piastri had the momentum in the championship, but Norris has came charging back now. So where do you see it at this stage of the season?
It's kind of tricky. I mean, the way I'm kind of seeing the season right now is basically a flashback to 2016 minus the boiling hot tempers of the drivers. Because Lando and Oscar seem pretty chill at the moment. I mean, obviously it's going to get closer down to the wire, but I think the momentum is kind of going back in Oscar's direction just based on the performances today. I mean, pretty much almost half a second clear of the entire field and about 6/10 clear on Norris after Norris getting back-to-back wins in the Red Bull Ring and at his home track of Silverstone. So, I mean, obviously there's anything could happen in racing. I mean, we've seen it on the eSports races that we have here and also in the real life races. I mean, Nico Hulkenberg got a podium last time out at Silverstone. I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card for this season, but yeah, right now it's looking like it's going to be in Oscar's favor, at least for this current weekend, but it's pretty much just kind of like a pendulum. It just swings back and forth constantly.
Yeah, which is how we like it. We want it to stay fairly close. But yeah, just as you think Piastri is getting away in this championship, Norris seems to come back. But then, like, you mentioned there, it does swing around. So we'll see what happens this weekend in Spa. And last word, if you like, on some of these sprint quality things today was there was 2 spins for drivers and not having a kind of great day, which was Kimi Antonelli and Lewis Hamilton. So Kimi was the first one to have a spin, actually chucked a load of gravel on the track, but he actually will start last for the sprint race tomorrow. Not a good start for his weekend. And then Lewis Hamilton himself will only start 18th after a kind of rear locking spin. It was quite a strange one into the final corner. What did you make of those 2 moments, Patrick? And was maybe Kimi Antonelli's one just a little bit of an experience, and then Hamilton's one something else? Where do you put it at?
Yeah, I agree with you for Antonelli. I think it's his rookie season. I mean, I know he's essentially in what is commonly the 3rd fastest car or even the 2nd fastest car at some races with that Mercedes. But it's weird seeing the Mercedes fall off for this track in particular because last year at Spa, they were really solid. I mean, they had a 1-2 before the disqualification came through for George Russell. But so this is a track that Mercedes, even in this ground effect era where it's not really been super sunshine and roses for Mercedes, they've been good at Spa. But yeah, I think Antonelli's he just got a little too throttle happy there on the exit, caused him to spin. But the weird one was Hamilton, and they just developed that brand new rear suspension that they tested earlier on. So I think that just that rear suspension just didn't really cooperate, but that was still a really odd place to spin because you would think you'd spin after the chicane just from putting a bit too much throttle into it, but he spun before he even got there.
Yeah, I mean, Anthony Davidson did mention something on the Sky coverage of you could hear this kind of shuddering sound of when the spin kind of happened, and it was something to do with the rear axle. So who knows? It's a bit of a mystery with Hamilton's spin, but obviously very costly because it's only the top 8 that score points in the sprint anyway. So he's got a hell of a lot of work to do if he wants to get anything from the kind of sprint race. And this weekend, really, it's a bad start for him, but it was also a bad start for George Russell. He was out in Q2, and he as well will be looking to pick up the pieces. So let's get on to some predictions, Patrick. Now, we're going to chuck in a bonus one in this one. We're going to guess on who is going to win the sprint race, as well as our pole and podium predictions, as we are recording it during the sprint event, if you like. So, Patrick, far away, what are your predictions for the Belgium Grand Prix, starting off with the sprint race?
I mean, it's kind of hard to go against Piastri considering just how rapid he was today. And I mean, because Park Ferme exists for the sprints as well, so he's pretty much got the same setup. Maybe a few minor front wing tweaks, but for the most part, it's the same setup. So, I mean, I'm thinking it's going to be Oscar for the sprint win. I think it's going to be pretty much Oscar, but I think Lando is going to be not too far behind.
Okay, interesting. I'm thinking for the sprint, I'm actually going to go with Verstappen, which is a bit of a bold one, but I think with the way that car is, I can see him getting the lead and then somehow, with the straight line speed of that car as well, managing to hold off the McLarens, but only for the sprint. So we'll see, but that's my thoughts on that one. What about your pole predictions?
Yeah, that's a bit tougher because obviously the teams are going to make they're going to make setup tweaks because Parc Ferme will be opened up. Teams can pretty much change the setup of the car. Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll probably have a better idea tomorrow after the sprint to kind of see who might end up on pole. But we also got to think about weather because weather is still a potential factor. And I think if they tweak the setup a bit to make it more rain friendly, then I think Max has a pretty good chance of getting pole in the Grand Prix.
Wow. Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that. That's a bold call, Patrick.
It would be very weather dependent because, I mean, and they would also have to get the setup right for the weather. But I think in dry conditions, that McLaren is just overall quicker because you gain about a second in the middle sector.
Ooh, that is tricky. Just because the weather looming over it, if you like, just makes this prediction so much more difficult. But I see your thinking, but I'm going to play it safe, and I'm going to go with an Oscar Piastri pole position. I think with the advantage he had in the sprint quali, that's influenced me there. I'm going to go with Piastri pole. What about your podium, Patrick?
I think it's probably still going to be Oscar, then Max, then Lando, I think.
Oscar, Max, and then Norris. So Max ahead of Norris on the podium.
I think so. I think it's probably even going to be more of a McLaren strategy issue versus anything against Norris. Because McLaren, they've been better this season, but last season they just made a lot of strategy blunders, I think. And something like that might just happen again because I feel like McLaren is still trying to kind of adjust to now being a top team after kind of being in midfield purgatory for forever until mid 2023.
Okay. And also, obviously, we're expecting this race on Sunday to be soaking wet. So, again, really hard to predict. Because, I mean, for crying out loud, with the weather that we had at Silverstone, we had Hulkenberg on the podium, which I don't think anybody ever predicted that. I mean, I'm sure someone put the money on it. But, right, my podium prediction, I am going to go with... Oh, dear. I'm going to go with Leclerc in third. I then think Piastri second and Norris to win to close up the championship gap at the top. So, and I think with Leclerc, I think like we'll have a bit of rain, but then I think Verstappen, I don't know, I'm not convinced about the race pace of that car, and that's kind of what's influenced my thinking there. But I mean, if it's soaking wet, then I definitely could see Max challenging for the win. But what do you make of it, of all of that, Patrick?
I almost threw Leclerc into my top three because I was kind of thinking like Ferrari might get their act together, and then just Leclerc can sneak in a podium if there's some kind of strategy blunder, or if Max has another spin, or just that Red Bull race pace just comes to bite him. But yeah, I mean, Leclerc is also a pretty solid choice for that podium, but I think I'm going to stick with mine. I don't think I've been right at all during any of these predictions, but hey, that's the fun of the predictions.
Well, exactly. That is the difficulty with it. I don't think we're ever right. So if someone eventually, I think, to be fair, Luke did get it right at some point this season. I have to mention that, or else he'll definitely be having a word with me. But he did get it right earlier in the season at one point. But who knows? It could happen again, and it may happen this weekend. Thank you for recording this podcast, Patrick. It's been a pleasure as always. A bit of a shorter one for you listeners, because obviously this is just a preview, and then we'll have plenty more to discuss after all the action of this weekend. If you've enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel, and you can give us a follow on whichever audio platform you choose to use. We'll be back to review the Belgium Grand Prix next week, and we'll see you in that one.